Welcome back, grade 11s. Now, let's look at our third concept, which is the challenges that are posed by socio-economic issues on businesses. The negative impact of low income levels. Many South Africans live in poverty, which limits their buying power. So the low income levels are being done by what? By poverty that people live in, many South Africans live in. So it simply means that they are having a limited buying power. They cannot support businesses as much as they would want to because of the low income level. So they make sure that they buy whatever it is that they need instead of what they want. Why? Because of the limited income that they have, of which it affects us as businesses, because with these people having limited buying power, it simply means that they cannot actually support our business the way we would like as a business. Now let's move on to the other negative impact. Because of this limited consumer spending, businesses are unable to grow and prosper. So because customers are having limited means of supporting the business, which is low income, then it simply means that as a business, we cannot be able to make profits, make a lot of profits actually, and be able to expand because our customers have limited means of income. Consumers opt to spend money on cheaper goods and services. So because of the little income that our consumers are getting, now they decide or they choose to buy cheaper products rather than buying those expensive ones. So it affects us as businesses, more especially if we are selling luxury products, because customers cannot even afford to buy them. So they opt for cheaper products rather than expensive ones. Now let's move on to the next socio-economic issue. We have a new word there. Inflation, it's the general increase in the price of goods and services and a fall in the purchasing value of money. The negative impact of inflation is that the sales of businesses will decrease because of reduced consumer spending on goods and services. So the inflation, the general increase of prices of goods and services does not only affect businesses, it also affects consumers, because now they'll be having less buying power because of the increase that has just affected in the products of goods and services. Businesses will have less money to spend on producing goods if the cost of raw materials increases. So it does not only affect consumers, even us as businesses, we are buyers to our suppliers. We buy from suppliers. So it simply means that because of inflation rate, it simply means that we are going to have less buying power to our suppliers. We're going to support them less, buy less raw materials in order to produce the goods that we were producing. Now, because of inflation rate, we cannot be able to do that, to buy as much as we used to buy before. So we'll have less input, but expecting a large output. So inflation affects businesses in that way. It affects consumer spending. It also affects us as businesses, because the money that consumers are supposed to be spending in a business, they are no longer spending it. Even us as businesses, the money that we are supposed to pay for our raw materials, it's going to increase. Then we are going to buy less raw materials. Now let's move on. Social and cultural issues is a socio-economic issue that affect businesses. We have a new word there. It's demographic factors are defined as the characteristics of a population for a country. For example, age distribution, gender ratio, and the racial composition of the country. Now let's look at the challenges that are posed by social, cultural, and cultural issues. Different groups of people with different cultures will behave differently as consumers, which will affect the business, marketing strategy, and sales. New fashion and cultural trends create different kinds of consumers, which may result in the reduction of sales for existing products. So obviously, consumers, they come from different backgrounds, they have different cultures, they behave differently. So their behavior is going to affect us as businesses, because when fashion changes, obviously, some customers will want to change. They will no longer be interested in our products that we are selling. So the behavior of a general society affects the business, because it even affects our marketing strategy, because we can formulate a marketing strategy only to find that it caters for a certain group of people and not for the other certain group of people. And knowing businesses very well is that we want to reach a wider audience, wider target market. So because of demographic and socio-cultural issues, then it affects us as businesses, because our marketing strategy cannot cater for all consumers. So it becomes a challenge to reach even those prospective customers that we would want to reach because of their demographic behavior. Then let's move on. Negative impact of population growth. As the population of South Africa continues to grow, businesses are challenged to provide goods and services to meet consumer demands. This may place a lot of financial strain on businesses. We all know our population growth is increasing daily, so it affects us as businesses. Why? Because now we have to produce more goods to cater for this population that is constantly growing, and it's putting a strain on us as businesses, the population growth. A high population growth may put a strain on the natural resources of the country. So having a strain on the natural resources of a country, it does not only affect a country, even us as businesses. Now we are going to do what? There's going to be a lack of natural resources, whereby we are going to be forced to go and buy natural resources which we are supposed to be having. But because of population growth, those resources are going to be scarce. They are going to be limited. Even currently, you know that we have a problem of electricity due to population growth. We have a problem of water, whereby there's water shedding. Why? It's because of the strain that the population growth is putting. So as businesses, the money that we are supposed to be saving for expansion, for profits, now we end up buying the natural resources that we are supposed to be having. But because of population growth, we end up having to spend that money. Let's continue. Illiteracy. There's a new word there. It refers to people who are unable to read and write. Little to no literacy skills put people at a disadvantage when trying to find employment or when trying to learn a new skill. So people who cannot read, who cannot write, it becomes a problem for businesses to be able to employ them, because how can a business enter into contract with someone who cannot read, with someone who cannot write? So it becomes a challenge entering into a contract or employing that particular individual, because now you have to train them, you have to explain what's even written on the contract. A person cannot understand, so it becomes a problem to employ such people. Another challenge of illiteracy. High levels of illiteracy in communities may force businesses to contribute towards educational programs to minimize its impact. So the high level of illiteracy, it sometimes forces businesses to give back, making educational programs in order to develop the skills of community members, because they are illiterate. So by developing programs such as that, it takes out money from the profits of the business in order to pay or to come up to develop these educational problems. The money that the business is supposed to save for expansion, now it has to cater for the skills of the people in the society. Negative impact of lack of skills. Businesses end up appointing a candidate who lacks certain skills, resulting in poor products and services. Now, with lack of skills, the business ends up being forced to appoint people who lack the necessary skills to perform the job. Not because they like, sometimes it's because of legislation, the Employment Equity Act, which says that you need to employ people on equal basis, making sure that there's affirmative action. So businesses end up being forced to employ these people. And by so doing, they not just only employ them, they have to take them to training in order for them to develop those skills. And the training of people who lack skills, it can take time than a person who already has the skills and be able to perform the necessary job that they were employed for. So it puts a strain on businesses. Training employees is expensive, and productivity will be affected as it takes time for newly trained employees to learn his or her new job. Economic crime. White-collar crimes are crimes of ethical misconduct, such as fraud and mismanagement of business funds that are committed in a business. So another word for economic crime is known as white-collar crime. So let us look at how does white-collar crime pose a challenge to businesses. Theft of business profits through fraud and deception can lead to a decrease in profits for the business. So obviously, if people are stealing money in a business, it's going to affect our profits as a business. We are going to have low profits because of theft that is happening inside the business. Businesses need to spend money on installing additional security features in offices or on their premises. This may result in additional costs. Loss of jobs if a business closes down. So if it happens that the fraud continues and it's undetected, so it simply means that people are going to lose jobs because business will no longer be making profits because of the fraud that is happening in the business. So the business won't be able to pay for operational costs such as paying employees' wages. So workers are going to be retrenched. Business is not going to make money. It will end up closing down, which will lead to unemployment for the staff. Businesses lose investors. So obviously, if a business is not making profit, the investors become worried of their investments that they're not going to get any return on investment. So if fraud is taking place, investors will end up withdrawing their investments in a business. Now, we move on to the negative impact of strikes. Strikes scares off potential investors. Businesses may be forced to close down, especially those located in townships. So the strikes are not good for businesses. It scares away potential investors. An investor would want to come and invest in your business, but because of strikes, the investor will be scared for their investments, for the return on their investments, and end up not investing in the business. And businesses that are located in townships, they end up closing down because when people strike, they tend to lose focus and loot on businesses, not focusing on what they're striking for. So those businesses, they're unable to recover after strikes have happened, so they end up closing down. May result in losses of production as employees stay absent from work during strikes. Another challenge is that if employees are striking, then it simply means that the business production is at a standstill because employees are not in the workplace. So it's going to affect the production of the business, whereby employees are striking, productivity is at a standstill in the business, so there won't be any income on those particular days where employees are striking. Then we move on to piracy. Piracy is the unauthorized use and production of another person's original work. So obviously, if you are copying music that belongs to a certain artist and you're not having a permission of doing so, then you're practicing piracy. That's piracy. You are duplicating videos or reproducing those music, we call it piracy because you are not allowed to do that. You are not given the permission to do so. Let's look at the negative impact of piracy. It drives up the prices of products in order to compensate for the loss in sales. So what happens if you continue reproducing or pirating other people's work? It's going to drive up the prices of those particular products. So meaning the people who go and buy those CDs at music stores, buy those DVDs, they're going to pay the price because now the prices will be higher, trying to compensate for the losses, for the copies that you have made, of which it's not a good thing. Leads to job losses in the industry. So imagine if all of us were going to copy, reproduce the music, reproduce videos or movies. What's going to happen? It simply means that people who are working in those particular shops that sell music, that sells DVDs, they're not going to make money, those businesses. And if the business is not making money, the business will be forced to retrench employees. So they will end up losing their jobs because of the piracy that's happening. Then the music industry feels reluctant to develop new talents as the element of risk is too high. So what happens to our artists now? They lack creativity or they decide not to be creative at all. Why? Because they know very well that even if they can be creative, at the end of the day, their music is going to be pirated, Their DVDs, the movies are going to be pirated as well. So that's why they are hesitant to develop new talents or to come up with something new that is out of this world, because it won't even assist, because their music is going to be copied. With that being said, now you need to understand that whatever it is that you learned today does not nullify yesterday, but it does make tomorrow better. Hope to see you soon. Bye.